What is the one single best piece of advice I would give somebody who is suffering through a terrible storm in their life, some tragedy, some deep depression or anxiety? The number one piece of advice is this. Hold on, and I'll tell you that in a second. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Dr. Monty Miller. I'm a licensed psychologist. I've been doing 20 years of work in counseling field and psychology, trying to help people with terrible storms in their life. The people I've worked with have just gone through horrendous problems in life, and I've learned a lot by helping them and learned a lot from them, and I want to use that knowledge to help other people. So, making this video is part of it. So to help YouTube want to show this video to more people, could you please subscribe and like my channel? Just hit the little subscribe button and the little bell notification to get notified of future videos as well. If you could leave me a comment and tell me what you think about this, it would be great. Also, watching it to the very end would give more watch time minutes, and that helps also a lot. So thanks a lot. Please watch it all. But I give advice to people who are hurting. I'm trying to help them with depression primarily, first and foremost. But anxiety and depression, anger, all those emotions are strong problems when you're dealing with terrible problems in life. And let's face it, we all have terrible problems in our life at times. Some things are just, grief and death and dying, divorce, children moving away, financial problems, severe medical problems and financial problems resulting from that. There's a lot of kind of problems I deal with that I've helped people deal with, and I've dealt with myself. And in my nursing homes I work at, or some of the other places I've worked at, I do a little experiment. I ask some of the people who are doing really well. As psychologists, scientists, medical doctors, we tend to study the sick people more than anything. But what if we study the people who are doing really well? The people who have learned to cope in extreme situations. I go around sometimes and I see somebody with no legs. Their legs have been amputated. They have one eye. This one guy I remember had one eye. And no family come to see him. Very lonely. But yet he was always smiling, always laughing, joking, and being friendly. He always had his spirits upbeat. Yeah, sure, he had some sad times. A lot of these people have sad times. But I've asked many people this question who are doing well. You know what the number one thing they say is? They did it in different words, but they all kind of sit there and say, well, I could be depressed, but what good would it do? Something like that. It's like, well, I don't like my life. I don't like the situation I'm in, but what else am I going to do? Being depressed wouldn't help me any, so I might as well make the best out of it. It sounds almost common sense when they say it. It sounds almost like it's a stupid question to even ask them. Like, well, who else? Why would you be depressed? What else are you going to do? It's like, well, a lot of us do other things besides be happy and accept it. We get depressed. But what is their secret? If you could summarize what they're saying in one word, it's accept what you cannot change. That old serenity prayer. God, help me to give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. To be honest, early in my career, I kind of really got annoyed with that phrase. I thought it was an overly used cliche that especially certain groups like Alcoholics Anonymous would use over and over again until it really just lost all its meaning. Until I started actually working with more severe distressed people and learning how to help them cope and learning how they're coping even when they're not needing my help. By, like I just said, asking the healthy ones. And so I've really come to value that whole expression. You don't have to say the long drawn out version. Let's just simplify it. Accept what you cannot change. It's common sense, but can you look at your life and what are you upset about? What are you most depressed about? I'm not asking you to like it. I'm asking you to accept it. There's a difference. You have to understand that there's a difference. Accepting it is not giving permission for someone who did you wrong to keep doing it. It's not validating and saying what they did was okay. It's not a big deal. Someone rapes you, someone beats you, someone abandons you or leaves you. It still stinks and it was sinful and bad and wrong of them to do it. I'm not saying that accepting it gets them off the hook. It's basically like forgiveness too. Same kind of thing as forgiveness. You have to forgive them for your own sake. Accepting what we can't change. It's kind of like I like the old phrase, it's like beating a dead horse. It's a simple phrase, but the point is is that why would you try to get the horse to run? If the horse is dead, you're not going to get it to run. You can beat it, you can whip it with a stick, you can pet it nicely, you can put a carrot in front of it. It's not going to run. It's dead, and it's silly to even try. But that's what we do with a large chunk of our lives when we're upset. We don't like how things are, and we can't move on. Now, as a cognitive behavioral psychologist, I'm always looking at what are our thoughts. Our thoughts deep inside our head that we're not even aware of dictate our emotions. You can't have one emotion without first having a thought. You can't get sad without having a, oh, this stinks kind of thought. You can't get anxious without an, oh no thought. And you can't get angry without a, that's not fair kind of thought. So your thoughts dictate your emotions. So if you're depressed over your situation, it may be normal and understandable. When you've had someone close to you die, you're going to be sad and depressed. But let's say a year goes by and you're still extremely depressed and not able to move on, and to the point of ignoring all your other kids, that's maybe you're not accepting it. Again, I'm not saying like it. It's just it can't change. You've got to make the best out of it. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it's so hard for us humans. We get so stubborn. But it's all about our thoughts. You have some thought in your head that's keeping you from moving on. What is that thought? You've got to work to identify it. And if you can't figure it out yourself, that's where a therapist comes in to help ask you different questions, just get you to look at your life from a different perspective. And that's what can make a huge difference in opening your eyes to that thought that's controlling you but not making sense. Once you open your eyes to that thought, you can realize, okay, that's really not make sense to have killed onto that thought. Let me change the thoughts. You change your emotions. It's kind of simple in that kind of way, but it's hard to figure out what those thoughts are deep inside our heads. Us humans are so smart, and yet we're so stupid sometimes, to be honest. All of us are. You know, it's like when someone dies, you have these thoughts of saying, no, it can't be, no, it can't. You know they're gone, logically, but yet for a long time you just sit there and think, no, it can't be right. Maybe there's someone's playing a trick on me. Maybe the doctors could really do great work, find a great doctor and do great work, and they can bring him back. Maybe God could perform a miracle. God, I'll be good if you just do this for me. And of course, nothing's going to work like that. Nothing's going to bring back someone from the dead. But we stubbornly hold on to it. Maybe 6 months, a year later, we finally, in our heart and our full in our head, accept that, okay, they really are gone. They're not coming back. But think about what we're doing, what that means, what that implies, and apply it to not just grieving situations, but any difficult situation you're in. If it can't be changed, you have to move on. Doesn't mean you have to like it, but feeling sorry for yourself and sad is not going to get you anywhere in life. It just ruins the time that you've been using trying to mess up your life instead of having a more joyful, happier life. Still doesn't change it, bring it back. But we think that we can bring things back. We deep inside, we think really stupid thoughts. And I'm not calling anybody stupid because we all have them, but they're stupid thoughts. And you have to grab hold of them and admit that they're stupid. One trick is to write down your thoughts. Write down why you're upset. And it may seem very stupid. Of course I'm upset because my brother died, and it's my child died. It's like, my wife left me. I lost my job, it's why do I need to write that down? But writing it down and then writing down anything you can think of, what can you do about it? Can it be changed? What can you do to make it better? Writing those things out gets it out of your head and onto a piece of paper, and you realize, oh yeah, you know what? I think I am thinking that. And I guess that really is not doing me any good. And it gives you a different perspective and it helps you to change. But you've got to first admit that there's a problem there in the first place. Ask yourself this question. If one thing could happen to make my problems get a whole lot better, what would it be? Is that thing possible to happen? If it's not possible to happen, you got to move on. If it is possible to happen, okay, then you need, that's the second part of the serenity, courage to change the things you can. Go and try to change it. In recent months, and talking with people, it kind of hit me a new kind of way of looking at this. Is why is it so hard for me and other people sometimes to accept what we can't change in some situations? Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not. Why is it harder? It kind of hit me. It's really harder to accept what you can't change when the problem is people. When the problem in your life is somebody is hurting you, someone is not loving you, someone is dealing with you in a way that's not fair, that's not right, and yet they just won't change. That's when this gets a lot harder. Accept what you cannot change. They could change. They're just not choosing to. You kind of think, okay, if I just talk to them a certain way, if I got through to them, if I really helped them understood how it's hurting me, then they'd understand. In my first marriage, I felt like this. It's like, how can I do? I read books. I'm a psychologist. I understand relationships. I read more books. How can I do something to get through to her? And I just felt like I really couldn't. And so that's where the hard part comes in, is then accept what you can't change. Okay, what can you do about it? What if you can't do anything about it? Just move on. Just live with that person. Maybe there's something you can do. Maybe you divorce. Maybe you quit jobs, change jobs. Maybe you get out of that situation with that relationship and you move on to something else. You just accept that they're not going to change. After a while, you want to try to do what you can to change. You communicate. You try to be open and honest with them and direct and still be loving. And you tell them, look, I don't like when you do this. Can you please do that? And if they still don't, maybe you need to threaten to leave. I mean, it's a tough situation and every situation is different. I hate to give that blank advice, but there are times when you have to move on in some kind of way. And if they really know that, then maybe that might pull their head out of their butt and help them to realize that they're going to lose something important to them that they'll regret later. Maybe that's the only way to get their attention. But I know these things are complicated, and again, it helps to have a therapist to talk these things over. But change what you can change. Sometimes that means moving on or getting out. I'm not going to advocate divorce or not divorce. That's for everybody to figure out for themselves. That's between you and God. But I know it's hard to accept that a person's not going to do something that they easily could do and maybe might do someday. But if they're not doing it over a long period of time, after you attempted repeated attempts to try to get them to understand, to get them to do what they need to do, you've got to eventually let go and say, okay, I give up. They're not going to change. That's who they are for whatever reason. Maybe it's because something to do with their issues. Maybe is something to do with they don't like you enough or love you enough. I hate to say that, but maybe it's them. That doesn't mean you're not lovable. It just means they're not choosing to love you. So keep that in mind. But sometimes you have to cut the cords and you have to move on. And that's hard to accept. But if that's the reality, you've got to accept it. A big spiritual part of this is humility. It's admitting that we do not have much control over our life and trusting God. Things doesn't mean things are still going to go away when we trust God, but that's a whole nother story. But we still have to trust Him, and we still have to let go, and we have to surrender to God that He's going to meet our needs of what we really ideally need. So we're not going to be completely left high and dry no matter who hurts us or what happens. We will be taken care of, and there is hope for the future. You've got to use your Christianity and your thoughts and believe that there's real. Either you believe it or you don't. So buck up and deal with it on a deep level and accept not just the bad thing that happened, but accept that there's good parts of your life as well. And there's a God who loves you and God who's going to make everything all better one day. And so you have to rely on that. And that takes humility. That takes ability to be able to sit there and say, okay, I'm not going to get my way on this one. My pride has to be swallowed. And it stinks, it's tough, but that's life. I can't get my way on this one. Like a little screaming kid who's throwing a temper tantrum, you've got to stop throwing the temper tantrum, except, okay, I'm not going to get my way. I want that cookie before dinner, Mom. Nope. Okay, you say no, I'm not going to get it. I've used that analogy before. I love that analogy. But you've got to move on, and you have to rely on your faith and submit to God and His power and His wisdom. But if you're stuck, there is something that you're not accepting, period. If you can't move beyond your feelings, there's something you're not accepting. You just have to deal with that. So I wish you the best. Please subscribe and like this, and let me know in the comments below what you're having to struggle with. I would love to hear more about that. I'll definitely interact with you. So please subscribe and like. I'll be praying for you. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.